Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slave Lake Zinc's YouTube channel. Here with me again today is Rich Wiggum, the CEO of Slave Lake Zinc. How are you doing today, Rich?
Really good, Michael. Thank you. Nice to see you again, by the way.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again. It's nice to see you again, too.
That's good, Michael. Thank you, man.
Anyways, so for those who aren't quite familiar with the zinc industry, can we start by saying what zinc is used for and what makes it profitable to mine it?
Well, historically, zinc is the great protector. It's used for galvanizing in steel. And back, say, prior to about 1980, a lot of buildings were erected, bridges, infrastructure, anything that had rebar in it. Didn't necessarily have galvanized rebar in it or had galvanizing done. You don't put something up now without having the steel galvanized. And so the usage of zinc has increased more and more and more as we've gone along. But there's also, Michael, some very interesting new things and why zinc is, I think, going to be even more of a critical metal going forward. And, one of them certainly is the battery technology. There's a number of groups that have discovered, if you will, that zinc is the best for storage as opposed to lithium. So the problem with lithium is that over time you have to replace those batteries more and they will break down. Well, zinc apparently is able to recharge many more times and be involved many more times and without degrading its value. So, for example, the problem with wind power isn't so much that the wind stops, it's more that the constant there so that when the wind is there, that you can store the power that's been generated. And so what zinc seems to be able to do is to be able to store greater amounts of that power and then to more efficiently give the power back into the grid or to put it back when when it's needed, and to do this consistently over and over again, where lithium eventually has an issue and it becomes more expensive. That's kind of the green kind of new part of this. And I think you'll find that, as we all know, that with the environmental concerns that we all have, and if you don't have them, then you're not paying attention. We've got to find those usage, those materials that can be used better and more efficiently, and zinc is going to be one of those materials.
Yeah, and I think it's also fair to say you guys will be mining zinc in a humane, ethical way, while some of the more international people have some bad reputations with mining lithium, where they picture the mines where people aren't exactly extracting it through humane efforts, right?
Well, we're in a jurisdiction, and I mean that by North America, I don't just mean the Northwest Territories, that, human rights are critical. But the thing to remember here is that, miners in our world, if you will, in Canada and the United States, have all the rights that go along with anybody else's profession. They're highly skilled, highly paid people now. The top gold miner underground will make $100,000 a year, for example. That's not unusual. So yeah, we are going to be, once we get to those levels, certainly adhering to the best practices.
Yeah, lovely. And you could say, as you had mentioned, that zinc looks like it's going to have a stronger role in the future. It really seems that way for pretty much all precious metals, right? Like there's lots of expert speculation that there will be this kind of stealth bull run for these precious metals coming up soon.
I think you're meaning more base metals, Michael. Technically, precious metals are, platinum, palladium, gold, silver, where
Gotcha.
Base metals are the zinc, the copper. And I think, there's almost universal agreement that within a very short time, copper, for example, will be very, very tight. All of the large mines, the great producers, are producing more rock at a lower grade than they ever have. And so what used to be production at, say, 2.5% copper for, 100,000 tons is now 1.8% copper at double the tonnage to get the same end result. So what's happened over the last several years with all of the base metals specifically is that you're having to move a lot more rock at a lower grade to keep the production up to meet the demand. And that can only go for so long. It's like anything else, declining reserves and declining grades create higher prices.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then, where we are now with Slave Lake Zinc, can you let us know what the next steps are and kind of walk us through what each step would be?
I can, and we're trying to, we're interacting here very heavily with the indigenous and local communities that we're dealing with up north for several reasons. And again, as I mentioned in our last video, that's kind of ongoing at the moment, and I don't want to really, hit that in one form or another. What we are going to be looking at, though, is that the work we have done is set up, the property very, very well for. We've got drill targets. We've got, a great deal of things that we can do on specifically our property itself, and. The big thing, for example, going forward on the drilling, because we are permitted to go and do that. Once we get there, hopefully a little bit, later this year, and I mean a little bit later this year, the big thrill is going to be just finding out, if there is any extent, because at this point, being hydrothermal, especially on depth, there is. As we start at surface, similar structures within the territories have been, that are like ours are 5,000-6,000 feet deep, and so that's, to put it metrically, 2,000 meters. That's sort of what we're looking forward to, is that we don't know what extent we've got, but we know that the potential for the extent is tremendous.
That's fair. So people should be pretty excited about that, right? The fact that it's unknown, but it could be like an amazing amount there.
Well, to put it in context, we know we're at least 200 meters deep on what was done in the 50s. And as I say, the similar structures around Yellowknife, for example, are 5,000 and 6,000 feet deep that they went into the mines around there. And being hydrothermal, and if people want to, do a little, hit the library kind of thing, you look up hydrothermal, and what you will find is that there quite often is like no known depth extent because of the nature of, where it comes, because it is fluids that have been generated from, potentially thousands and thousands and thousands of feet below the surface, millions of years ago. So, we know that we're hydrothermal. We know that we've got, a lot of potential, within our area, and we're working diligently with the communities to, enhance that side of the potential as well, and look forward to doing more of that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I look forward to the drilling results and everything then too.
Well, that's good, because, as soon as we're in a position, we will get that underway and get that going. As I say, we're permitted to do that, so we've already taken the steps necessary, to take advantage of that.
Okay, and then what comes after we get the drilling results then?
That's a very broad question, because we're going to, like any other situation, we will be drilling off of the success of the previous drilling, and so in our particular case, there will be a fair amount of drilling to get to the point where the inference of economics of scale can happen very, very quickly, but that will never kind of stop the drilling. Once the drilling starts, and we have shown that we've got the potential to be, large and significant, I think you'll find that in essence the drilling won't stop. It'll just keep going and going as it expands and proves up a larger and larger scenario that we've got. And so that's part of the reason we're putting the groundwork in now to, get the local communities ready for that, and, to make sure that they're kind of with us and partners with us to move those things forward.
I see. So let's move on to a little bit of more recent events, right? Everyone's been talking about this corona, and obviously it's not going to be the end of the world for anyone. But how can it affect the mining industry, specifically when it comes to zinc?
Well, kind of the big thing is that, the end usage is probably kind of stopping. It's not so much, what happens to the production side, I don't think. You may find that there will be production halted in a lot of areas because, a miner gets sick, and so you don't want to infect the rest of the crew, or the rest of the crew gets it. That chain on that side, may be held up. It might tighten up. It might tighten up significantly on the near term. What's probably more the case, though, is that, for example, the auto industry, uses just a tremendous amount of zinc, because everything that they do, from fenders to bumpers, kind of thing, has got zinc on it. It's all galvanized, it's all coated, it's all, whatever. And so if those things slow down, then you'll find a slowdown on the production side. The difference, though, is that you can't slow down and then ramp up as quickly as you can with, in mining, as quickly as you can in other things. So, really, there shouldn't be much of a bottleneck, if you will, and if there is, it'll show up pretty quickly out of China, and what you'll see is that the price will start to appreciate very quickly, because if the Chinese, with the larger problem they've had and what they're looking at, they're already in a declining production environment, and have been for a couple of years. That'll tell a story, but it's too early to try and guess that, I think, at the moment.
Okay.
Because there aren't any hard and fast answers, frankly, Michael.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not as simple as China starts slowing production, the price of zinc goes through the roof. But from here, we can just make a lot of kind of speculation, so to speak.
Yeah, the back starting about 3.5-4 years ago, several of what were not large producing mines started up again, and they're no longer in a position to keep producing, and they sort of filled a gap that was there for consumption. And so consumption right now, if you look at warehouse stocks and all the rest, it's all at historic lows, low levels. And the question in the marketplace is, like, where is the zinc? Why is it not in storage? Why isn't it there? It hasn't really affected the price again to the positive so much now, but a lot of those kind of startup mines are now no longer effective, and they're going to just go back out of production. And so within the next 18 months, I would be not at all surprised to see, coronavirus or not, zinc stockpiles getting to even more critically low levels as usage is still being maintained. The other part of this, of course, on the corona side, there's a great deal of talk right now that to keep the economies of the world stimulated and moving forward is that infrastructure spending finally will have to gear up, and that'll be the big projects to keep the recessions from happening, and on. Well, if that's the case, I'll tell you, the zinc usage will go, I won't say skyrocket, but boy, oh boy, oh boy, will it have an impact, because at this point, it's been 15 years of talking about infrastructure projects that haven't really occurred, and there's not a bridge in the US of A that doesn't need to be replaced if it's more than 30 years old.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see that being here, man. Just about everything between the buildings, the roads, the bridges, it's all really old, and we could really use a big stimulus to our infrastructure.
Right. Well, the first and biggest thing on that is you go steel, and then you go zinc, and then you go everything else, because that's what you build bridges and roads with. And that hasn't happened yet. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Rich, for easing everyone's mind about the mining industry with the coronavirus. Is there anything else you want to offer people before we sign off today?
Not really, Michael. I appreciate seeing you again, and look forward to our next chat, for sure.
As do I. And anyone who wants to ask any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment below or join the Telegram group. All right, Rich, you have a good day.
Thanks, man. Take care.